What is our true origin? Where do we come from? At some point, you have probably asked yourself these questions. Who am I? Where did my ancestors come from? What is my real lineage? The Holy Scriptures provide a detailed account of humanity's beginnings. But how did distinct ethnicities arise? Blacks, Asians, whites, Arabs, indigenous peoples. How did so many diverse groups spread around the globe? We will examine the origin of all nations, uncover the connections among the Earth's peoples, and reveal mysteries that may have been overlooked. Get ready for a compelling journey into the human family tree. According to the Holy Scriptures, humanity's genealogy goes back to Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This story includes people with dark skin, attributed to the lineage of Ham, one of Noah's sons. The name Ham can mean hot or black in certain languages. He was the brother of Shem and Japheth, each considered the patriarch of large ethnic groups: the Semites, Arabs, Jews, Syrians; the Japhethites, Europeans and Asians; and the Hamites, Africans and other peoples with dark skin. Over time, the term Hamitic or Amit described Ham's descendants. In biblical and related studies, the Hamites are recognized as inhabitants of Egypt, Ethiopia, Libya, and parts of Canaan. These areas, rich in heritage, were home to ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, whose achievements are widely recorded. Notably, figures in the Bible such as the Queen of Sheba are linked to these African lineages, underscoring the importance of Black peoples in sacred history and human development. Across centuries, biblical interpretations have offered insights into the ancestry and identity of African peoples and the Black diaspora. According to Genesis, after the flood, Noah and his 3 sons were tasked with restoring Adam's lineage. Only 8 survived: Noah, his wife, his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. Humanity had to restart its story from these few individuals. Ham is widely viewed as the ancestor of Black and African peoples. His name is closely tied to Africa in the Scriptures, with the Book of Psalms identifying him as the progenitor of the ancient Egyptians. Rabbinic traditions, Jewish folktales, and other records support this idea, pointing to Ham as the patriarch of African peoples. The regions connected with his descendants reflect his name's meaning in Hebrew, Aramaic, and other ancient languages: burnt or dark, referring to the complexion of his offspring. Various biblical and historical texts reinforce Ham's presence in African territories. In Genesis 10 verses 6 to 14 specify Ham's lineage, naming his descendants and linking them to particular regions. He was the father of Cush, Mizraim, Put, Phut, and Canaan. Cush is considered an ancestor of many African peoples, especially those in Nubia and beyond. Mizraim, Ham's other son, is traditionally identified with Egypt. Even today, Arabs, Jews, and Syrians call Egypt Mizraim, referencing its founder. Put is linked to areas of North Africa, and Canaan was the father of the Canaanites, who settled in the Levant rather than in Africa itself. Cush's descendants are also worth noting: Havilah, Sabta, Sabtecha, Rahama, Sheba, and Nimrod. Nimrod stands out in the Bible as the first mighty man before the Lord. He established key Mesopotamian cities, including Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, showing that Ham's lineage extended well beyond Africa. This account highlights Africa's profound ancestry while connecting everyone to a common point of origin, illustrating how lineages branched out to create the cultural and geographical diversity we see today. The influence of the Hamites, particularly in Africa, is grounded in biblical tradition and historical findings, emphasizing this legacy's significance. Early in his rule, Nimrod, descended from Ham through Cush, reigned over Babel and other Mesopotamian cities. Known as an ancestor of ancient Babylonian peoples, including the Sumerians, he later moved to Assyria, founding Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, and Calah. His leadership marked the start of organized governance in the region, displaying his prowess and vision. Meanwhile, Mizraim, Ham's other son, fathered several North African nations, including the Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Petrusim, and Kazluhim. The latter gave rise to the Philistines and the Caphtorites, who were crucial to Eastern Mediterranean history. Mizraim is also associated with the rise of Ethiopia and other African nations. Nubia, once known as the Kingdom of Cush, is noted as home to Cush's line. Cush, a key figure among Ham's descendants, had an essential role in shaping African and Mesopotamian cultures. From the fertile lands of Nubia, Cush became a central point of contact, mainly along the Nile, where interactions with Egyptians, Canaanites, and others influenced his civilization. These exchanges broadened trade and culture, affecting the region's social and political development. Nimrod, Cush's son, is also featured prominently in the Bible. He is described as the first mighty man on earth, founding a kingdom that included Babel, known for the Tower of Babel. Genesis says this structure was humankind's attempt to reach the heavens, resulting in the confusion of languages and the scattering of peoples. Although the scriptures say little about Nimrod, ancient Jewish texts often portray him as a rebellious figure who may have challenged divine will. He is also linked to the emergence of the Sumerians, extending his influence both in Africa and Mesopotamia. These genealogical links showcase the expansive heritage of the Hamites, from the Egyptians and Nubians to the Philistines and Sumerians. Their diverse interactions significantly shaped ancient history and the world's regional makeup. It is also believed that populations in southern India, including natives there, share roots with Cush, as well as various African groups like Malians, Eritreans, Kenyans, Congolese, and Bantu peoples of Gabon. In the Bible, Cush is typically connected to Ethiopia, Sudan, and other parts of Africa, literally rendered as Ethiopia or black. Besides Cush, Ham also fathered Mizraim or Mizrahi. In the Bible, Mizraim is a term for the land of Egypt. Originating from the Hebrew word Mitzrayim, this label identifies Egypt itself. Hence, Mizraim is often associated with founding the Egyptian civilization. Biblical genealogy views Ham's descendants as the forefathers of many nations and ethnic groups, with Mizraim seen as the forerunner of the Egyptians. He is likewise acknowledged as the patriarch of ancient Egyptians and multiple North African peoples like the Berbers and the dark-skinned Tuaregs. Semitic groups, such as Arameans, Arabs, and Israelites, also call Egypt Mizraim, a name that shows up in Aramaic, Arabic, and Hebrew. In Psalm 78:51 it says, "He struck all the firstborn in Egypt, the first fruits of manhood in the tents of Ham." Alongside Mizraim, Ham had a son named Put, also known as Phut. Put, Noah's grandson, has a Hebrew name linked to Libya, mentioned 3 times in the Old Testament. In ancient times, a river named Puet was in this region. By Daniel's era, the name evolved to Libya, seen in Daniel 11:43. According to Flavius Josephus, Put founded Libya, and its inhabitants were called Putites. Interestingly, the name Put or Foot comes from a root implying bow, connected to African tribal hunters. He is viewed as the ancestor of native black Libyans and other African peoples. Concerning the so-called curse of Ham or Canaan, it's crucial to note how the Genesis 9 narrative has been misunderstood. After Noah's drunkenness, Ham saw and mocked his father's nakedness, rather than covering him. This led to Noah's curse on Canaan, Ham's son. The reasons may appear harsh, but honoring one's parents was deeply important, and Noah's intoxication was considered an accidental result of new wine. It's vital to stress that Ham and his other sons, Cush, Mizraim, and Put, are recognized as progenitors of African peoples. It is crucial to dismiss the myth that black people were cursed. Noah's curse was solely directed at Canaan, father of the Canaanites in the Middle East region. The flawed notion that African peoples were cursed is baseless. The biblical account clearly states the judgment was aimed at Canaan alone. Meanwhile, Ham is regarded as the ancestor of Africa and those in southern India. He had a notably long life, having been born before the flood. He witnessed at least 5 or 6 generations, similar to his brother Shem, who lived around 600 years. Although the Bible doesn't list his exact age, some think it was around 600 years. Where Ham's tomb lies remains a mystery, with theories placing it in Ethiopia or Nubia, or even Mesopotamia, ancient Sumerian territory. Most experts, however, agree it is likely in Africa, perhaps in Sudan or Ethiopia. Some speculate he could be buried in Egypt, a land famous for its ever-emerging historical secrets. The Book of Jubilees provides additional insights into Ham's advanced age and events tied to Noah's family, focusing on the 3 lineages of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This ancient Jewish work held in high regard during Christ's era, describes Ham strongly objecting when his youngest son, Canaan, took lands meant for Shem's lineage, later known as Israel. Ham did not approve of this choice. In the book of Jubilees, it said that Cush and Mizraim, Canaan's brothers, joined Ham in urging him to leave that territory, insisting the lands of Africa belonged to Ham's descendants. But Canaan refused, disregarding their pleas. Jubilees also states Ham founded the first city and province after the flood, naming it for his wife, Naltamok. Europe is large, with many countries and cultures: Germany, Austria, Poland, Hungary, France, Italy, Romania, and others. But did you know that the Holy Scriptures mention the origins of European peoples? Yes, the Bible names nations that trace back to their ancestors. In Genesis 10, genealogies hint at the roots of various civilizations. Those who examine biblical texts through historical symbolism find captivating details about the birth of different peoples. Among these are the Greeks and Macedonians, cited in the Bible as direct descendants of Japheth, Noah's son. Through Jewish tradition, Japheth is honored as the earliest ancestor of Europeans. In this framework, Javan, Japheth's son, is the forefather of the Greeks, while other branches of Japheth's line gave rise to multiple European nations. This knowledge, carried through the ages, shows a link between biblical heritage and the foundation of Europe's peoples, connecting modern societies with humanity's distant past. Japheth's name holds deep significance. Traditionally interpreted as beautiful or pale, it can also relate to expansion or multiplication. This seems apt, seeing how Europeans spread throughout history, colonizing faraway lands and shaping cultures globally. Biblically, Europeans are identified as Japhethites, children of Japheth. Outside the Bible, the Indo-European language family, English, German, Russian, Ukrainian, French, Spanish, and others, is sometimes called the Japhethite language family, reflecting the biblical ancestor who fathered the European peoples. This shows how biblical genealogy and the rise of Western societies intertwine, and how languages and identities evolved over time. The Holy Scriptures mention the earliest European ancestors in Genesis 10 and in Chronicles. Here we see Japheth's line, including his 7 sons and their offspring. From these names, we trace the foundation of Europe's ancient groups. The Israelites also knew Europeans as Japhethites or Javanites, especially regarding the Greeks, who were called the children of Javan. Genesis names Japheth's sons: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. Gomer's sons were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah, while Javan's were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. An interesting link is Ashkenaz, recognized as the ancestor of Germanic peoples. This is still acknowledged today in Jewish tradition, as shown by references to Ashkenazi Jews. The Bible's narrative and Europe's development come together here, revealing how the Hebrews understood national dispersion. As many know, Jewish communities have long referred to Germany and similar regions as Ashkenaz, based on this tradition. Ashkenaz is also considered the patriarch of Scandinavian and other Germanic groups. In parallel, the Bible introduces Riphath, whose descendants are sometimes tied to the Celts. According to an ancient perspective, the Irish people, directly descended from Celtic tribes, accepted this biblical ancestry. Hence, Riphath, Gomer's son and Japheth's grandson, is seen as the progenitor of Celtic groups in Europe. Besides Riphath, there are other sons of Japheth often linked to European or Europe-related populations. One prominent example is Madai, identified as fathering nations in what is now Iran, recognized historically as Aryan or Iranian peoples, known biblically as Madaites. Among them are the Medo-Persians, whose name strongly hints at Madai, reinforcing that he fathered the tribes shaping Media, Persia, Parthia, and other Persian groups. Other notable characters in Genesis 10 are Magog, Tubal, and Meshech. Scholars tie Tubal and Meshech to the origin of Slavic peoples, including Russians and Ukrainians, due to links between these biblical names and the historical migrations into that territory. Many who study biblical genealogies see Russia and Ukraine as the lands of Gog and Magog, with Tubal and Meshech identified as their ancestors. Knowing who these peoples are helps interpret Old Testament prophecies like Daniel, Ezekiel, and Isaiah. Magog, Tubal, and Meshech are accepted as the forerunners of Slavic groups. Ashkenaz is the ancestor of Germanic groups. Slavs and Germanics share some genetic ties as Europeans, but they form distinct cultural groups. Another figure is Tarshish, a son of Japheth. Historically, Tarshish is deemed the Etruscans' ancestor. The Etruscans influenced the cultural and genetic makeup of ancient Italy and Rome. Though not solely Etruscan in origin, Romans were shaped by that heritage, coupled with Javanic ancestry from Javan, another of Japheth's sons. Exploring these biblical foundations reveals Europe's interconnected past and how old civilizations evolved. A compelling detail about Javan, Japheth's son, is that he fathered not only the Greeks, but also tribes akin to the Greeks in ancient times. Their customs and heritage ran parallel to Greek culture. Many of Japheth's heirs gave rise to old civilizations, with their names shifting across Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic versions over time, influenced by events like the Tower of Babel. Biblically, the rise of many languages was God's response to human pride, disrupting the original Adamite tongue and scattering peoples around the world. Among Javan's sons, Elisha is prominent. He is seen as the ancestor of the Hellenes in Greek, the peoples who formed the core of Greek identity, so Elisha, Japheth's grandson, is often deemed a founder of early Greek tribes. Tarshish, another well-known name among Javan's sons, appears frequently in the Bible. Identified as the ancestor of the Tartessians, he is tied to an ancient people of the Iberian Peninsula. They are considered the earliest documented settlers of that area, meaning that Portuguese and Spanish populations partly trace their lineage to Tarshish. Though the Portuguese also have other Japhethite and Semitic influences, biblical traditions include Tarshish in their ancestry, signifying multiple roots in the region. The Tartessians left a strong cultural footprint in the Iberian Peninsula, making them an intriguing subject for further historical and archaeological inquiry. Another of Javan's sons is Kittim, often linked to Cyprus. The Cypriots are said to be his descendants, tying them to Javan's lineage. The fourth son, Dodonim, sparks debate among scholars, with some believing the text should read Rodonim, pointing to a possible link with the Dardanians of ancient Troy. This suggests that the Trojans might stem from Javan, enlarging his family's impact on ancient history. Biblical genealogies and their historical connections open countless avenues of research. While we won't delve into every detail, the main takeaway is that Europeans spring from Japheth, defining them as Japhethites. This link reaches from scriptural accounts into present-day nations, showing how deeply intertwined our modern world is with ancient narratives. The Bible goes beyond spirituality, standing as a robust archive of history, culture, and age-old insights. It unveils a grand vision of how civilizations formed and how various peoples traveled through time. In Genesis, the core of the Holy Scriptures, we uncover the groundwork for understanding lineages and the roots of humanity. There, Noah emerges as a key figure. A man deemed righteous, Noah was chosen to save life during the Great Flood. When he left the ark, he carried both the promise of renewal and the task of guiding human resurgence. But it's in the story of Noah's sons that we see the diversity branching out across the earth. Shem, Ham, and Japheth each received blessings and became patriarchs to countless nations. They helped disperse humanity, shaping traditions, regions, and legacies that endure. Our focus moves to Japheth, a cornerstone of human expansion. Beyond the blessing he shared with his father, Japheth was vital for populating vast stretches of land, forging a thread that connects ancient times to the present. His life underscores how ancestral links steer the human story. Japheth's name translates to beautiful or to enlarge, and in Genesis 9:27 we read, "May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant." This divine pledge points to growth and prosperity. Among Noah's sons, Japheth's blessing was especially broad, foretelling that his line would cover great distances and shape various societies and cultures. Their influence extended from Europe to Asia. They inhabited vast lands, advancing civilization. The phrase, "May he dwell in the tents of Shem," implies more than just territory. It suggests a friendly relationship between Japheth's and Shem's descendants, reflecting centuries of shared culture. Biblical accounts of people's beginnings align with modern science. Genetic studies confirm close ties between Asians and Europeans, supporting the idea that Japheth's descendants peopled those continents. As we explore this genetic tapestry, we find the Xiongnu, an ancient Chinese group from around the 7th-3rd centuries BC. Studies of their mitochondrial DNA reveal a predominantly Asian background, but also about 12% European heritage. Though they lived far from Europe, these ancient Asian communities displayed genetic links to Europeans. This attests to the Bible's enduring insight, revealed long before modern science confirmed it. Turning to Greek mythology, we encounter a striking coincidence involving the name Asia, portrayed as a beautiful figure married to the Titan Iapetus. We see echoes that might connect Greek myths to biblical sources. It raises the question, could Greek tradition contain a distorted version of older scriptural truths? Is Iapetus the same as Japheth, Noah's son in the Bible, given how similar their names are? According to the scriptures, Japheth's descendants settled in places that reached Asia. Might he have named that land for someone dear to him, paralleling Greek legend linking Asia's name to Iapetus's wife? Some see it as mere coincidence, others wonder if there is more behind these ancient accounts. Chapter 10 of Genesis is often called the Table of Nations for describing Noah's sons' descendants after the flood, mapping out where different peoples originated. Verse 2 refers to Japheth's sons, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras, marking Japheth's lineage. The Table of Nations follows with further detail on the peoples emerging from these lines. This chapter acts like a genealogical map, outlining how post-flood humanity branched out in diversity and blessing. Among Japheth's lineage, Gomer stands out as his eldest and Noah's grandson. Though rarely mentioned, Gomer's family influenced many cultures. He fathered Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah, each representing a new branch of humanity. The text underscores God's guidance in human multiplication. Ancient traditions reveal that Gomer's offspring shaped numerous societies. Ashkenaz is linked to the Scythians, a nomadic warrior culture in Eurasia. Riphath connects with Celtic peoples, molding Europe's cultural tapestry. Togarmah draws special attention for his role in founding groups in the north and east, influencing Asia's civilizations. Togarmah's name has intriguing meanings. In Old Assyrian, it can suggest dominator or merchant, in Hebrew, broken, and in Phoenician, pulled or broken. Some link the phrase broken or pulled eyes to traits associated with many Asian groups, tying Togarmah to Eastern peoples. This reveals how the Bible intertwines with history and anthropology, shining light on ancient origins. Further proof is seen in Ezekiel 38:6, of Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. In context, the prophet Ezekiel envisions a final alliance of nations against Israel. The mention of the house of Togarmah from the north hints that his kin took root in these areas, possibly connected with places in Asia. These insights have led scholars to link Togarmah with the Turks, Mongols, Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans. Each group embodies a part of Togarmah's heritage. The Bible not only situates them in ancient chronicles, but points to their ancestral bonds. China, for instance, is vast and influential, and many see Togarmah and Japheth as a foundation for its lineage, matching Scripture's claims. The Mongols roamed the Central Asian steppes, shaping regional politics with far-reaching conquests. In Japan, Togarmah's descendants developed a unique culture that spread its influence worldwide, while the Koreans formed another significant branch of this lineage. The Turks, standing at the crossroads of East and West, carry a heritage woven from diverse cultural and historical strands. Japheth's extended blessing, that his descendants would thrive across great domains, proved true over centuries, a fulfillment that persists today. China itself, among the world's largest nations both by area and population, reflects the longevity of Japheth's line and what the scriptures predict. I hope you enjoyed this special exploration of how the Bible portrays the diverse ethnicities of our world. May God bless your life.